And we're back with more Shadowrun Returns. I was hoping to get some peace and quiet tonight. You got something for me? I got a flight recorder. Wouldn't happen to be an Ares flight recorder, would it? Some very powerful buyers looking for that right now. I can get rid of it for you for, say, 20%, at least 2,000 for you. Deal. Pleasure doing business. It's always good to have a fencer. You don't want to carry around hot merchandise. Not that I'm giving meaningful life advice, I mean purely for shadow running, of course. Thanks to the semiconductor-based gene sequencing system that David employed, we should have the information needed to track the Ripper in the Matrix. I'm really impressed with his results, considering it was his first attempt. He was utilizing an unproven technique he'd read about in a science journal and working from memory on minimal sleep. That's great, Professor. What's the plan? We hit the Lone Star DNA database, first to see if we have donor as a prior criminal record. They have extensive DNA archives. Then we go hunting based on what we find. Let's hit the decks and jack into the Matrix. I can get into their private grid easily, but I've got to warn you, once we're in, it could get a little rough. How much decking experience have you had? That's not Rinko's wheelhouse. In terms of a decker that I made for my Shadowrun team to have someone on standby, that was actually Honoka, who I actually designed as my player character before it was decided that I was GM. And so, yeah, Rinko doesn't do tech. What now? I have a TrodeNet here. It's a headband you wear that lets you piggyback with me in the Matrix. You'll see and hear everything that I do. This is basically their way of explaining how I'm basically going to be able to play as someone else for a short bit. Now, under normal circumstances we're in, you snap slide ups, you connect your consciousness to the digital world. Although you aren't jacked in like Johnny, the sensation is overwhelming and electrifying. You can only imagine the way it feels for him. If I had any decking experience at all, even just one, I actually could have sent Rinko in here to help him. But that's not the build I'm going for, though when I first played Shadowrun Returns, my first character was, in fact, a decker. But the rules are very much the same. As you see, there is stuff to hide behind, and stuff to work around, and decking mechanics in Shadowrun can get a little crazy. The upside to which is Shadowrun Returns and Dragonfall use a fairly streamlined system where they kind of try to marry the two playstyles. This arch will take us to the next node. Now, that in mind, Hong Kong uses a slightly different method for this sort of thing. Data source ahead is defended by intrusion countermeasures, which is commonly referred to as IC. Now, we have some programs here. Now, just like spells, these operate on a cooldown. Now, this red bar here, this is our emergency eject button. You don't want to have to emergency eject. That hurts. You can literally fry your brain, or at the very least have a very nasty migraine afterward if you tried to do this. But, I mean, it's better than being deleted. That would literally just be your brain being compromised. Now, thankfully, we have some options. Not the least of which is summoning a little bit of help. Which is precisely what I'm going to do. This attack program does one thing and one thing only. It attacks. And it attacks pretty decently. Can't complain. You can think of this as kind of the tech equivalent of being able to summon spirits. I'm just gonna have Johnny attack straight up. Really skilled deckers tend to have a lot of turns they can take, so I'm going to get into cover and fire. Remember, any cover is better than no cover. Icy's down. Let's see if there's a match for the fingerprint. Now, we can investigate unmolested. I'm just going to have him chill there for a second, because we're probably going to head back. Hack DNA database. DNA match located 100% match arrest records database. Subject, Silas Forsberg. Status, deceased. Profession, chop shop surgical assistant. Priors, breaking and entering 2 counts. Public indecency, 1 count. Brought in for questioning on accusations of unlicensed plastic surgery. No charges were filed. 100% match to a dead man? Let's keep looking. And just like in a real run, Matrix runs can also go south. If you take your time and think your way through, generally you're gonna be okay. You need to keep your wits about you. They might get some free shots on us if they can move close enough to attack. We may have to go without benefit of cover for a turn if we end up in a bad situation. Yeah, this really isn't amazing. Okay, well, better than I hoped. So, hopefully he can destroy that one, and yes, alright, that worked out pretty good. He's out of line of sight for Johnny. Thankfully, you can move really far distances in the Matrix, and it's okay. It's actually a lot farther than you can in real life. You are more powerful on the internet than you are in real life. Shadowrun.txt, really. Anyway, hacked news article. Newsnet 1. Return on subject. Silas Forsberg. The body of Silas Forsberg, Chop Shop surgical assistant, was found in an apartment in Snohomish earlier this week. The body had been there for as long as a month when Forsberg's landlord noticed a rancid smell and contacted authorities. Lone Star representatives have issued a statement saying Forsberg's death has been ruled a suicide. According to reports, his body a mass of puncture wounds, and the cause of death was determined to be an overdose of anti-stress medication and sedatives. His body a mass of puncture. Yeah, that still doesn't make sense. So basically, he got totally coked out of his mind and decided to end his own game. The man's employer claims he was a dedicated employee, though he suffered from bouts of depression. Forsberg's next of kin could not be located, but the attorney appointed to his estate has located a will written weeks prior, leaving all his belongings to a psychiatrist. The identity of the psychiatrist has not been released due to privacy concerns. Yet another sad end to a life, as is far too common here in the sprawl. That might be something we can go on. Let's regroup in meat space. There's one more area we can explore, and I'd rather check it before we go. The longer you stay jacked in, the more that bar down there fills up. If it fills up, we really will get our hands filled. Two more hits in the name Silas Forsberg. I saw you over there, pal. You're not going to get me that easy. Okay, this should work. I can snipe this guy from quite the distance. Missed. Well, that's okay. That's why I bring help. Any good decker really should. 87%, that's good enough. If we get rid of those guys, we can grab this record and leave. Alright. I'm just going to end the turn. I'm not sure he can grab the autopsy record. I think only Johnny can. Autopsy records. Subject Silas Forsberg. Note, subject was found overdosed on half a dozen different sedatives. Oh, man. Several anti-anxiety medications were also found in his system. Face mutilated, possibly self-inflicted. Identity could not be confirmed immediately due to disfigurement. Had to check dental records to confirm no next of kin. Large puncture wounds were found in several places in the body, possibly large bore surgical needles. That's terrifying. Body had been decomposing for several weeks before the landlord noticed the smell and called police, and no one answered the door. It just keeps getting weirder. Well, that's the end of this particular rabbit hole. So we're just gonna jog back to the start. Now, the program doesn't actually need to jack out or anything. It'll automatically return to its dormant state when Johnny leaves the Matrix. By the way, the reason it's called the Matrix is because the actual internet as we understand it actually was destroyed. That's a different thing. That was the Great Crash. So here's what we know. Our DNA evidence belongs to a dead man whose death is never explained. He worked with chop shops, which fits with the living guy that you've met. Usenet says he left his estate to a psychiatrist, and finding out who a psychiatrist was will give us our next clue. My gut says we can deck into the medical board's records and reverse trace to find the doctor. You in? Punch it, man. And back into the breach. The Matrix is a wide scale. Basically, it's new internet. I hesitate to use the words, internet number something, just on the grounds that no matter what number designation I give it, it'll be misconstrued as something else, seeing as how we're technically supposed to live in the era of Internet 2.0. That being said, the old internet is gone, the Matrix is all that remains, and it's essentially the same basic idea. You have the option of treating it like you do the internet as we understand it today, and you can access it with even a simple deck or even a comlink. But if you really want to make some motion in the ocean, you gotta be a decker. Oh, you can hack it, I was wrong. Searching medical records, Silas Forsberg. Medical record files for Silas Forsberg located. Check his earliest records, which is from the 2020s to the 2030s. Pediatric record, partial. One particular pediatrician's entry stands out from the rest. Child suffers from chronic depression and social anxiety, most likely caused by his physical abnormalities. We've seen many cases like this recently with the outbreak of changeling children being born. With the aberrant physiology we're seeing, there is no telling what sort of brain functions are affected. Prescribed a series of sedatives last year that seemed to have no effect, upping the dosage. Now, this is something that should be mentioned. In 2012, Magic re-entered the world of Shadowrun. Magic operates on, I want to say it's a 20,000 year cycle, where magic will enter the world and then for a time it will leave. The reason it's called the Sixth World is because it's the 6th time this fluctuation has happened. Now it's the 6th major movement of magic, in this instance, magic coming back into the world. So it's going to be around for a while yet. Around the same time is when meta-humanity developed. Meta-humanity meaning the different meta-types: dwarves, elves, orcs, trolls, and regular everyday humans. They're born into the human population. They're not a separate species. In fact, I believe the way they classify them is it's Homo sapiens and then an additional term for which meta-type you are, which, like, I believe humans are now Homo sapiens sapiens or something really redundant like that. And the thing that happened almost immediately was confusion, panic, and rioting, especially because things like goblinization, or when a child becomes an orc or a troll, happens during puberty. So when they're real little kids, they're still just normal, everyday-looking human children. And this scared a lot of people. It actually caused a huge number of riots and wars in some places of the world. So in some instances, some metatypes take a while to manifest. So we're not sure what Silas here is metatype-wise, but it's possible that his was a late-stage appearing metatype, and that it could also have effects on the brain. That was actually an issue with goblinization, especially when trolls grew their horns. The horn could actually puncture the skull and cause brain damage, and send some of them into wild fits of murderous rage because it would physically compress the brain and short-circuit their ability to function. So this actually kind of gave the stereotype that trolls are these big, brutish, evil, monstrous goblins and stuff, even though that's definitely not true. Like we saw Mr. Cluve, very much a gentleman in his own right. And it's true, there's different types of metatypes, and trolls are the rarest, but there is a stigma against them for that reason. Alright, enough backstory. 2030 to 2040. Data missing or corrupted, contact the administrator. 2040 to present. File here is quite large and takes well over an hour to read through. The final entry, however, is most significant, written by Dr. Henry Holmes. Silas has overcome significant mental disorders and no longer goes through periods of violent episodes. Latest medications are proven especially effective, but I believe that being treated by another elf has significantly impacted his treatment. Okay, he's an elf metatype, we know that now. Unfortunately, my efforts to maintain an emotional boundary with him have proven challenging. He's bonded to me in an unhealthy and frankly an unnerving way. His hero worship exhibits itself in the form of mimicked speech patterns and adopting my dress. For this reason, and for health of the patient, I'm assigning another doctor to the case. I will inform him at his next session. Gotta get a name now, Dr. Holmes. Let's keep going and see what works. Black Icy could fry our brains and kills it. Yep. That spiny little guy over there? Yeah. he's kind of serious. He's a... You could think of it as an evolved state, I see. We're gonna get rid of the most immediately... Whoops, I went the wrong way. Yeah, net navigation can be a little weird sometimes. That's my bad. Thankfully, Johnny should be okay. I can get rid of this white IC, and I think the black one is far enough away that I'm not in any immediately pressing... But I'm going to leave him there. Let's get you back. Problem is you have to leave the door and then go back into the door, which takes 2 steps. Now let's return. Ooh, alright, that's not good. 50% chance. Alright, let's take the risk. I think Johnny can do this. He's a good decker. That's a pretty sturdy enemy. Alright. Just take your time. It's not like I'm in danger or anything. And this is really your kind of your tutorial. Like if you weren't already a decker or weren't already familiar with exactly how the Matrix mechanics of the game work, this mission is here to enlighten you. You can do a little bit of Matrix diving, like I mentioned, especially during the one with the chip heads. So you can learn ahead of time, but this is where you officially learn. Employment records located. Henry Holdings Holmes, MD, PhD. Let's see, check current employment status. Current employment status. Dr. Henry Holmes currently holds the position of Chief Psychiatrist and Administrator at Mercy Mental Hospital, Snohomish, Washington, UCAS. So let's check his previous employers. Previous, 2045 to 2054, Psychiatrist and Residence, Mercy Mental Hospital, Snohomish, Washington, UCAS. 2040 to 2045, Attending Psychiatrist. And then 2030 to 2040 was a private practice. So he's moved up in the world. I don't know, I guess depending on how well a private practice does, that's up for debate. But generally speaking, he's pretty much promoted every 5 or 10 years with some regularity. So the guy is obviously competent. Bingo, back to meat space again. Really, if it helps put things in perspective for you, you can just think that, you know, Shadowrun is the grim, gritty older brother of Mega Man Battle Network. I wouldn't even really say grim. That depends on your GM. Shadowrun games typically break into 2 different... Reality's at the end of the day contextual. As the meat road comes back into your focus, your head once again tries to settle on which one is the real one. While the philosophical question lingers, your meat buy demands food and drink. You disconnect your deck to find that your Union safe house has risen. As I was saying, depending on your GM, you basically have 2 families of Shadowrun. There's the pink mohawk for people who like things big, exciting, and silly. And then you have, what do they call it? Black trench coat for games that take themselves much more seriously. I'm going to bump up quickness. And I'm going to up my gunplay and dodge here pretty soon. What's up? David looks almost as tired as you do. You can tell that the case has gotten under his skin like it has yours. Any luck in there? Found an exact match with the DNA. It was linked to a dead chop shop assistant by the name of Silas Forsberg. Now, I have my theories, but what do you think is going on here, Diamond Ring? Maybe Silas faked his death. That's a distinct possibility. What was it we saw in the autopsy report? Face is so mangled that used dental records to identify him. Good catch. That matches up with something I've seen runners try. It's easy enough to find a body shop that'll make a replica set of teeth for you. Find some schlub off the street no one will miss. Swap the teeth, throw the heat off your trail for a while. Lucky I've never been that desperate. Why would he need to go to those links? Did the police records have something linking him to a different crime? He had prior for unlicensed plastic surgery. True, it wouldn't look so good on someone's record if they wanted to become a doctor. I think this is beginning to come together. The late Silas left all his belongings to a doctor. Dr. Holmes' employment records have him as an administrator at Mercy Hospital. And the picture on his file matches the person you saw downtown. The same person this DNA belongs to. All the evidence points to him being your killer, whoever he really is. I should go find this Dr. Holmes and ask him some very pointed questions. Please pay him my respects. I always Aim. Find that high-caliber rounds get the message across. You should clearly hire some friends and go load for bear. I sideloaded a ton of valuable data from those Lone Star Matrix nodes. Here's your cut. See you later. Let's see. What is our current financial situation? 6,000 new yen? I think I can cobble something together on that. What can I do for you, sir? Looking for runners again? I'm your guide. Discreet services only. Let me check the shops. I should not rush ahead, and there might be better armor, and honestly I'm tired of looking like this. So let's talk to our friendly neighborhood clothing store. Excellent. Let's see. UCAS mil spec grants +1 strength and +5 HP. Taken off a dead ganger seemed like a good idea at the time. Quickness 1, HP 5. I hate that outfit too, but whatever. This is the life I have chosen now that I am a Unga Bunga. That's actually kind of cute on Rinko. Alright, that's fine. I'm gonna look silly, but I've already looked silly this whole time. Alright, let's talk about some new shooty bang bang magic. Despite the hour, Buster is fastidiously put together in another wrinkle-free suit. He shows every indication that he's been up for hours, sunk to his elbows in a dozen crates, each containing objects of sinister matte black hidden beneath curls of straw. A straw-colored packing foam. Foam flies about as he inventories the shipment, clinging to every surface except for Buster's immaculate suit. Just in time, got a whole new slew of new toys in from another supplier back east. Factory fresh, still smelling of their mother's gun oil. Maybe there's something in the batch you'd be interested in. How long have you been in the trade, Buster? Let's see, I left Cal Free on July 8, 2038 at 6:13 in the morning. It was a Thursday. From there, I wandered a bit, applied my skills as a merc in a half-dozen different wars, official or otherwise. Never did take to running the shadows like some of the boys I knew. Too subtle for my taste, I suppose. Surely there was no shortage of full-scale engagements to be had, so I didn't want for work. Might still be doing it today if I hadn't lost my arm. How'd you lose it? It was all so stupid. Some Azzies were lobbing smokers behind our lines, more to mess with us than anything. I decided to toss one back. It just figured the one I grab ain't a smoker. I got it off, but only just barely. Shredded my old arm, but good. Got plenty of other scars to remember the moment by as well, but the arm was the big one. Take a word of advice from an old soldier. Make sure you're never holding a grenade in one hand unless you just pulled the pin with the other. Now, if I haven't given you any reason to doubt my professional competence, how about we talk turkey? Let's see what you got. Ooh, you do have some new toys. But I'm interested in one particular family of toys. Shotgun seemingly made for the Shadowrunners. Damage 18? Yes, please. You know, it couldn't hurt to have two on hand in case I need to swap at the last second. Never mind. Thank you, sir. I wonder if there's any... Hey, Doc. Let's see your cyberware real quick. Just one glance, all you can tell the good doctor is exhausted. Her crumpled scrubs are stained with a mix of blood and other fluids too colorful to be naturally occurring in the human body. Her eyes are those of a person who has built up substantial sleep debt and has no idea or when or how to begin paying it off. I'm not one to talk, but you look like Drek. Afraid there isn't much I can do for that. Doc casts down to her fingers and calls forth the spirit normally seen perched on her shoulder. It appears from out of the ether, and the doctor immediately seems less fatigued than she was a moment ago. Now, what can I do for you? Everything alright here, Doc? Here at the Union? Yes, fine. Just getting back myself. Days here tend to be slow, so I volunteer at Medical Center on the other side of Touristville, and I had a rough shift. What happened? What always happens. Some run or some deal or some meet went south. One thing led to another, etc., etc. I didn't hear all the details. All I really know is what came in the lips of the victims healthy enough to still speak. Apparently one of the Baron's gangs incurred the wrath of the local, Solpa, I guess, rings, leading by a rolling shootout through the city streets, several bystanders injured. But the real mess didn't begin till the party crashed into the yard of an old industrial plant out on Union Hill Road. They woke some sort of toxic spirit, which then began running amok, causing easily as much damage as the initial battle. Yeah, toxic spirits are bad. You don't want one. If you summon one, you are officially a felon, and they're allowed to just geek you on sight. So don't do it. We were let to pick up the pieces, of course, but enough about my troubles. Let's hear about yours. Let's look at your cyberware. Wired reflexes. Oh, that would be so sweet. And you have to trigger it like an ability. That's a little lame. You will dodge the first attack against you, but it's movement +1 no matter what. That's cool. Alright. Let's see. I believe I have the Ass Technology leg. If I had more money, I would totally go for the wired reflexes. Let's see, Essence 1, 5. Currently only... I don't have that much going spare. If I'm gonna pick something, I'm gonna need to be careful what I pick. Now, some stuff can be replaced, like... You can replace a cyber leg with a better cyber leg, and that won't cost you additional essence. So, yeah, that's a thing to consider. Just 6 HP for 1.5 essence? That's crazy. I will take the better eyesight, though. Plus 3% to hit is... Yes. I know what I'm doing. For one, it's not super expensive. Two, every buff to accuracy helps, and... Ah, right, I should check my items. Ah, good. This is a Doc Wagon Basic Trauma Kit. Doc Wagon is actually an organization that will basically send mobile ambulance and ER teams. It's a way you can explain that your runner fell during a run without having them die if you want to. The way the game handles it instead is it's basically the game's revival item. It's good that everyone have at least one of these on hand. But honestly, Rinko is basically good to go at this point. I mean, right now she should have really, really good armor. Yeah, 8 armor, 8 quickness, thanks to the new armor set I just got. I should consider buffing her body some at some point, just to the HP pool. And then I'll start... I need to get dodge up too. I have a few things I can invest in. Alright, I think we're ready then. I need a crew. So my budget is 4,200. Adept. I should probably try to get a Decker, some kind of spellcaster, and probably someone to help me on the front line. Now, a thing that the game doesn't really reflect is, well, runners form friendship groups. And, of course, runners run to get paid. But generally, the Fixer or the Johnson does the payout. The way that Shadowrun Returns had to do it changes things a little bit. So, obviously, I have to pay even if it is, like, repeat help. But sometimes the game throws you a bone. Like here, I'm going to take Shannon as my mage. Or my spellcaster, I should say, because she's a shaman, strictly speaking. So now I just need a hacker and probably someone to just help in the front line. It's tougher to troll her drones. What kind of loadout do you have? Machine gun. Axe. She's a melee type. That's interesting. Street Sammy. I think Shiny Bit's the one I took last time. Well, I guess not, 'cause I thought she had a shotgun. We're gonna take a Decker. Maybe I should take someone from the Nephilim network. There are a couple different... Like I said, Shadowrun is a classless system. So, calling yourself something like a techno shaman is technically true, but likely this guy has some kind of weird suboptimal build. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to make fun of people. It's just really interesting when people do that, but Shadowrun gives you those options if it's something you want to consider. You know, maybe we'll take an adept. The meat is weak, the body is strong. Oh, he's bananas for Kataners. Alright, Malik the Mauler. I'll take you with me. You should give us a pretty well-rounded team. That's pretty good. Head to Mercy Hospital to confront Dr. Holmes. Oh yeah, we're doing this.